My name is Okoyemi Retumare. I'm primarily a lawyer. Some of you know me here because I work for you. I answer to you. And some of you have experienced me over the last decade. But for those who are yet to know me, my work is basically being a lawyer for creatives in the creative industry in the last 10 to 15 years. And in the last 10 to 15 years, I've built businesses, enterprise that has put more money in the pocket of creatives, that has transformed businesses from moribund business to surviving business. And some of those businesses Boomplay, and another of those businesses Ayoba at the MTN. And some of those enterprises also the SARS Academy, who has produced about one of the top 5 producers and the top producer in Nigeria. I'm grateful for Homecoming bringing me here. And today I'm going to talking about, or rather, I'll be debunking myth, sharing knowledge, and exposing us to the obvious. Either by telling you what Africa truly is, what the opportunities are, and what the new frontier looks like, and maybe what's going on behind the scene. I'd like to just first of all give credit to the young, beautiful minds who made this slide happen. They are a testament to what I'll be speaking about today. The things and the market knowledge that I'll be sharing, they are, would I say, more of a success story of the things that I'll be sharing today. So I'll let you read, but I'll just guide your mind as I speak. When we talk about African music, everybody says Afrobeats, right? But let's talk about before Afrobeats. Music in Africa was not necessarily a product. It became a product maybe sometimes in the 50s and 40s and 50s, when we knew what copyright law is, or when we begin to know what intellectual property is. Before then, music was a medium of worship, a medium of history, of transferring knowledge, a medium of sharing cultural exchange, even a medium of protest, and which I would have on the way. Music has been a process by which a group of people, whether you call them tribal people or ethnic people, have used to explain their pain, to translate their culture from one generation to another, and in some instance to codify words, to send information, war information. There are times we know of tribes who would sing war strategy to different emissaries and send them on 4 different parts. And when they are captured, they keep singing what they've been told. And only those who could decipher the song know what is in the strategy. And we also know that one of the most popular war, 1884, the Kiriji War, it was the song by the soldiers on the forefront line that made it seem like they had much more armor than those who had cannon. So African music had always had a renaissance. It has always been much more than music. It has always been a part of us. It has been the things that we use in expressing expressing what we are and the issues that we live through. So, what are this music? If they are not Afrobeats, if they are music that we've used to define so many things. And by the way, when we say Afrobeat, we understand that Afrobeat is the way the other world has understood what we do outside of us. But this is what Afrobeat is. Afrobeat is many genres across the continent put together for a global audience to be able to make sense of it. But today I will not talk about Afrobeat more. I'll talk about Amapiano. I'll talk about Bongo Flavor from Tanzania, Cope Dekale from the Francophone region, which started as a protest music, by the way. We have London, the Afrobeat by Fela, which is a fusion of jazz and highlife. Maskandi, then obviously the new Afrobeats. We have Kwaito, we have Kwela, Marabi, Mbaka, Isamiya, Kem, Awurebe, Fuji, Apala, Juju, and Waka. For the purpose of this, because this is not a thesis class, I'll take Waka and I'll take Juju as a case study. Waka used to be the music where women in the Yoruba culture would use to protest against husband abuse, against economic impropriety by a particular husband's relation, or sometimes a cry that women will go to war. And Waka is basically a style of music that's been used by women where a woman who is probably in her home going through some sort of abuse from the husband, either because she's barren, either because she's not treated well, and she stays in the compound early in the morning before the birds start crowing, and she starts singing. And when she starts singing everything, all the women in the neighborhood would know what is going on with her, without practically saying, hey, my husband is abusing me. I'm not getting what I've been promised when I was going to get married. Ladies and gentlemen, Waka is what Ashake sings today. Waka has metamorphosized all through history to now become a song. One of the big prominents of Waka in history that we know that modernized Waka was a lady called Salawa Abeni. She also used Waka for the same thing, to talk about women in politics, women in business, women's ability to vote, women's consideration in health. And obviously through history, we've had several global organizations partner with Salawa Abeni to drive the narrative. But when you look at today, which will speak forward, how many women, female artists knows about Waka? Do they understand that Waka can communicate much more music and reach much more audience? I mean, we had the Me Too global movements. Waka had been the Me Too that existed among a set of people before now. Then I'll go to Fuji. Fuji is a very young, when we compare it with a lot of music like highlife, Fuji is very much young. Fuji is about 3 generations old now and was created by a man called Barista. He used to use drums to wake people up during Ramadan, like we have now. As a young boy, he would go around with a single roll band drum and beat it across the streets and call the names of the owners of the house. And when he goes around the house, he calls their name and he sings, and people wake up and they eat. And from the windows and the roofs of the house, they throw in money, bags, clothes, and then it goes around. He didn't have a name for a while, and then it kept going on tour, performed in London, performed in Europe, performed in Japan, and then yes, he performed and went to Japan and saw Mountain Fiji, and he said the only thing in his mind that looks bigger than this mountain and that can express this mountain is the music that he made. And ladies and gentlemen, we had Fuji. Fuji had, in the history of Nigerian music, we have so many artists right now who has used Fuji. Davido has used Fuji in the hit song Skelewu. Olamide has used it in his hit song Omani Fowoshe. Reminisce has used Fuji and is about to use it soon. Debunking has used Fuji in his music. Wizkid has used Fuji in his music. There's practically no known hit song or no non-major A-list artist from Nigeria under the terms of Afrobeat that hasn't used Fuji to create a song. But in the meanwhile, we also have Fuji as a, I think this is disconnected. We also have Fuji. We have Fuji artists who are still alive. We have the likes of K1 The Ultimate. We have Said Oshupa. We have St. Janet, we have Remy and Luko, and the list goes on. The reason why I went through all this is just to begin to prepare your mind to understand the opportunities that we have not tapped into, and to understand the reason why, for example, the disclaimer, I'm a Grammy professional member, so I'm not speaking for Grammy, but I'm making a reference to the reason why we all felt bad that someone who had one song took the Grammys, but we don't. But we did not ask ourselves that in that whole category, 4 people from this culture submitted the genre from another culture, and we're expecting them to give us an award that belongs to another culture while ignoring the originator's culture. It's not possible. But I realized that it's because it's not from a place of intentionality, but a place of ignorance. We do not know what we have. We do not understand the opportunities behind what we have. And for a very long time, we've thought that what we have was just one, e.g., Fela Kuti, and maybe the Magic Man himself. So when we look at all that genre and we begin to ask ourselves, how does it make sense? What is the value of those genre? Why am I listing them out? What would they become for us? But the truth is, while every young person that I've maybe mentored in the last 5 years through the Music Business Academy, when they come to me, 90% of them would say, I'm building the next thing for Afrobeats. I'm managing the next Afrobeat star. I am working, and in my mind, I'm asking myself, Afrobeat is saturated. Afrobeat is just a genre. Why are you not going out of Afrobeat to manage somebody singing Waka? Why are you not looking at somebody singing Fuji? Fuji artists have toured the world much more than any artist. I mean, as of this era, we would say maybe Burna Boy, Angelique Kidjo has been the one touring the world in this contemporary era. But none of them has toured the world as much more as KSA. None of them has achieved the feat KSA has achieved. That's King Sunny Ade. And none of them has achieved the feat that K1, who has gone around world tour more than 12 times, he has performed at the Grand Prix, both at the events and also at the after party on the boat tour. And if we understood that knowledge, why are we boxing ourselves with Afrobeat? Why is Afrobeat the only reason we care about? Then music production. If we've listened to so many Afrobeats and we agree, why are producers for the last 2 years recreating Amapiano? Why didn't they go take into Fuji? Why didn't they go into Awuribe? Why didn't they go into Waka? Why didn't they go into Kwon? What was the whole Amapiano rush about? That over 120 competing songs on a trend table in a year, and 90% of it was appropriating another person's culture, when we had ours that we could toy with. Then obviously in the marketing and promotion, and the head of Spotify for Africa, the director of Africa, claimed that Belgium and another country makes more money for Spotify in terms of revenue and royalties than Nigeria. She's right. And I don't think she needs to say that before we understood that, because Afrobeat is only for urban communities in Africa. The Afrobeat we know doesn't sell outside of Lagos. If you enter your car and you as you begin to drive outside of Lagos towards Ogun State, towards Oyo, and you listen to more than 42 radios, they only play 8 songs. And in every 10 songs they play, it's only one Afrobeat song. The remaining 9 is Fuji, iLife, Awuribe. So you are only getting revenue from Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, and maybe Enugu. An average Joe in Nigeria, an average person in Ibadan, an average person in Akure, an average person in Enugu will not pay for the playlist that is being created on Spotify. The playlist being created from Spotify is only created for urban kids. The shows we are setting up in Lagos are not urban kids. I mean, When you look at our events in December and you see the marketing and promotion, it's only 10 artists on 42 events. Why do you want a consumer to pay to see the same artist performing the same song 30 times in a season? And you only map your data around that. But when you leave Lagos, someone like myself, I leave Lagos in December. I don't spend my time in Lagos. I spend it on my farm in Osun. I go to bars and I see a lot of young unknown artists performing their songs and getting sprayed more money than a B-list artist can make in Lagos. He's performing to a 500 audience in Oshogbo. Another one is performing to 100 in Ondo and Akure. He's performing in 4 hotels in one night and is being sprayed money and is making his money. Your data does not know them. It doesn't see them because you are marketing and promoting the wrong song to the right audience. And that is why when people make up panels and they say radio is dead, I just laugh. Because even when you look at the budget of FMCG companies, which is the perfect one to map strategy about, not telco companies. If you map your strategy around telco companies, you will not get results. You're supposed to map your strategies around FMCG products, that is home products. Products that lives among people irrespective of how much internet they're able to buy. When you tailor your marketing in that direction, you will see the truth about music. And that is why, for example, an artist that we are working, or these young people are working with now is Nice. If any one of you have been following Nice, you will see the rebirth of his personality. It's because he has now moved his mind from just focusing on urban audience to having a tailored market. And for me, who is on both sides of the audience, is making so much money than a B-list artist who is waiting for summer. An urban artist is only waiting for summer and festive period like December to make money. A locally tailored artist is making money every other weekend. Another example is in Lagos. Almost in every place in Nigeria, by the way, maybe Lagos and Southwest tops the rank. There's an Owambe party every weekend. And to book a hall in any way in Southwest will cost you have to book like maybe 12 weeks ahead. In those events venue, we are not here to talk about whether they pay performing royalties or not. Those event venue have to book a live band. And those live band gets paid. And those live bands get paid sometimes much more than an urban artist. An urban artist gets a bill and says, pay me 5 million and perform. These bands, they get 2 million to perform, and then you pay them another for their instruments, and then at the venue, they ask you, how much are you going to spray me? When he's going home, he's going to go home with probably about 7 million, and then also go home with goodwill. An urban artist comes to the venue, gets his money, does a 2 minutes performance and go. No value, no after sales, no network and connection. Then distribution. It's probably the funniest part of the whole issue. We have every distributor coming to Africa, taking everybody's audience, The artist signs to TuneCore, and then after 2 albums, it moves to 1 RPM, and after 2 albums, it moves to United Masters, and 10 distributor companies rinsing the same artist all over and over because of inability to delve into the market. So when you ask a distributor, who are your artists in the market? Oh, I have 2 Nice's album. But Nice is not with you again. Yeah, it's not with us again. It's now with Vidal. And you go to Vidal. Which artist do you have? Oh, we have Nice, but it's moving. It's the lack of knowledge and our inability to do the work. We have, as I speak to you, one of the 2 largest labels before Abacha took over, and that made people like Polyphonic Sound, Epic Sound, Warner left Africa, Atlantic Records left Nigeria, by the way. We have EMI. EMI has about 6,000 albums undocumented that are still in cassette formats. I was the one who documented Premier Records. I think I did about 200 out of their records. I think they still have about 350 undocumented. EMI has about 6,000 catalogs undocumented. Some are in vinyl, some are still in cassettes. Tambasi has about 150 albums on transferred to MP3. So they are like tons, and these are record labels that were in Ikoyi jazz old era. I'm not telling you about record labels that were in Ibadan, the ones that were in Ondo, the ones that were in Kaduna, the ones that were also in Jos. Jos had one of the biggest labels before military era came in 1993. These labels have so many records that are unused. And you might ask me, does it have value? Yes. If anyone has seen Sex Education Season 4, Episode 6, go to about 11:23 seconds. The songs that was performed in that song that was played in that scene was recorded in 1943. And if you listen to Coldplay's song in their last album, Bani Adas and Champion of the World, a song was sampled called Otutu Nake. It's a gospel song that was recorded in 1923. We licensed those songs. So if you ever ask me if those catalogs are valuable, they are much more valuable than you can ever imagine. If you also listen to a record called 1 Million by Veronica Vega and Quavo, the beginning of the song sounds with a sound called Isheoluwa, it was composed by Alhaji Haruna Ishola Bello and was recomposed by his song Musiliu Haruna Ishola. And that record was recorded in 1973. And Veronica Vega's biggest song is still that 1 Million. And the producer that recorded that song and sampled that sound is called Ayo. Ayo, the producer, who is a multi-Grammy Platinum record winning producer. So these genres and their songs, both recorded in the past and that may be recorded now, has much more value than you can imagine. And let me also say, the Nigerian government has landed a new cable in Nigeria now that will now bring in another generation of about 60 to 100 million people on the internet. These 60 to 100 million people will begin to look for their culture online. And their culture doesn't yet exist online. That's a huge market that would become heavily monetized in the next decade. They would look for their songs, their stories, their history, their food, their narratives. Google doesn't have it yet because it has not been documented. It still remains in archives, in libraries, in rooms, in wheels of several estates that has yet to be unearthed. Definitely, if you look at the first 4 opportunities, you definitely know that royalties administration is going to be a huge part. In Nigeria, currently, I only know 2 royalties experts. And I'm proud to say I trained those 2. And it's funny that we have so many artists, but a lot of them don't even know what their royalty says. We have so many deals flying around in the music industry, 25% publishing, 2% point masters. We haven't seen any case around auditing. We foresee that in the next 5 to 10 years, with a lot of careers start sunsetting. I'm not an harbinger of bad news, but a lot of career will sunset because the new generation, we've seen reports that by 2027, there's going to be about 12 million new voters in Nigeria. They're going to be of age to vote. Now, if you use that data also in the music space, it also means that those generations will want new music, new young minds. So a new generation will rise, a new one will begin to sunset, and they will begin to ask for their shares in music. And at that point, royalties analysts will begin to show up in courts for auditing, for expert witness, and for also ascertaining if they were paid or not paid. Definitely, live events and concert promotion, which is still the biggest revenue in Africa today. Streaming will never beat event performance in Africa. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. Our culture is a culture of gathering and communal festivity. We like to meet ourselves outside. We rarely have weathers that keeps us indoor for a longer period. People would meet outside at venues, at events, either to celebrate the death of a loved ones, marriage, birthdays, success, graduation, and the list goes on and on and on. And there's a new cultural renaissance that is happening for so many reasons. People would prefer to see their culture being showcased to them at their own events, at their own gatherings, and with the new audience of about more than 12 million. I mean, the federal government says it's going to be about 100 million. We have been nice saying out of that 100 million, maybe about 12% of them will have the right purchasing power. But we've seen the exponential growth of internet penetration enabled by 4G in the southern region of Nigeria past 5 years. 4 years, because we are at the 4th year now. From COVID era to now, streaming revenue had grown by 38% in sub-Saharan Africa. And that has only been enabled by internet penetration, because COVID allowed us to embrace a lot of internet services that we would naturally not embrace. And we go to music publishing, which is a no-brainer. You can see almost all the movies that charts on Netflix last year and Amazon were all local movies. Anikulapo, Us and the Kingmen, and the list goes on and on. This will continue with Netflix increasing its marketing spend on the continent, with Amazon Prime has pulled out but has have a partnership with local studios to get a PO guarantee for their films. We have the Russian company called Yandex already servicing in other countries. And Yandex is like the Google of Russia, by the way. They also have a full suite of digital business. And we've seen their presence in Ghana, in Ivory Coast, and we know definitely they are bringing their Yango, the fund, which is the video and the music, to the market, and we know they will spend. We also know Angami, who is focusing heavily on Northern Africa, is also launching his VOD service. So there's a no-brainer. There's going to be a lot of licensing in that area. And obviously we have opportunities in education, and this is one of those opportunities. We have the SARS Academy Foundation. The SARS Academy Foundation is one of the best products that I've invested my life in the last almost 10 years now. And I'm proud of it because by our students and our graduates, we own about 50% of the market share when it comes to music production. And the 8 songs that has happened in the market in the last 5 years has been by our producers. And our producer, or our founder, my partner SARS, has been the master behind pushing that growth in education. And sometimes I ask myself, what if we didn't bet on that education? What if we didn't discover Prime, Tempo, Duni, STG, Tells, Legendary Beats? These opportunities we've only scratched the surface because we focus just Afrobeat. We've not left the realm of Afrobeat to begin to discover people in Fuji, in Awurebe, in Waka. We've not also built education for the development of local instruments. As at the last time I did that research in 2018, we have about 29 local instruments, major local instruments across percussion and strings that has not been moved from local to digital. So when you produce on Reason, when you produce on Fruity Loops, there are about 29 local instruments that do not exist on there. You know some of them, Bata. What you find is sampled Bata sound, which hasn't gone through a musical system. It's skewed. You don't have tambourine. You don't have the Mali strings. I've forgotten the name. There's that strings for Mali that has a calabash face. You don't have goje. You don't have kakaki. And these are just, and then recently we just saw the one by Casey. Oja just made his way out. And Oja is just one of many flutes that you can find in the eastern part of Nigeria. So the education part of the opportunities are abound, is limitless. And then everything I've talked about, there's a tech part of it. Whether distribution, whether education, whether royalties, everything we've talked about can be enabled by technology. We've seen how Curve has used royalties to start giving advance to artists and record labels. We've seen how BeatBread has built a vertical of royalties to start giving artists royalties in advance. Is it working now? I don't think it's not moving. Okay, good. I mean, tech will swallow everything. Tech is in everything and can solve almost everything. But before we get to tech, we need to understand everything first. Need to fix what the problem is before we allow tech to come and play its role. You cannot deploy tech when you don't know the problem. You don't have the data around the problem. You need to first know what music are undocumented. You need to know what genre are undocumented. You need to know what instruments are undocumented. You need to discover them before you begin to use tech to enable them. And obviously, cultural preservation and heritage. We are in a building that is preserving culture and heritage, and we know how far this gallery has gone across the world. We also know how much is generated for Lagos, and I also know that this gallery is being built also in Osun State, where we have the Osun River Festival every year, August every year, where we have about 200,000 foreigners fly in every year to come and attend. And there's always music nights, music culture being played. And we also know that Osun Festival, if I'm correct, yeah, that's Osun River Festival, generates about $4 million every year for the state of Osun. Now, that's not even the federal government. So, I want to oil your mind. I've talked about solutions. And I've talked about the things we can do, where we all can find money. If each and every one of us in this room, thank God it's not large, if we pick one, in the next 10 years, each one of us will probably be millionaires, because this is a need. People need to consume their culture. People are trying to discover their culture. There's a large growing diaspora audience that is looking for answers and culture. We can see the homecoming in Ghana. We can see the flights to Rwanda. People constantly looking for culture, but because it's undocumented, it's hard to find. But these are platforms already existing that have taken on the role. But they are definitely democratizing opportunities. YouTube is allowing you to learn in order for you to bring in content, in order for you to use Creator Studio. You have BeatStars. But the question is, do these platforms see your culture? Do they have what I just spoke about? So why should they be in our market? They are not in our market, and a lot of people say, oh, they are not in our market because we have rubbish governments, because, its market is not juicy to them. Those are all lies. That's not the truth. Those are just sentiments. We locals have not built our market enough for these people to come in and latch on. There's practically no resource for them to use to sell to us. When we were building Boomplay and we built the platform, and we had so many foreign distributors distribute to our platform, we had only ad supported, and we had the users every day tell us, insult us on Google Play Store. What are you doing? What's this nonsense? You don't have my music. And my boss then, the Chinese, would say, what are they saying? Why did they say we have Ed Sheeran, we have Beyonce? Why did they say we have? I said, when I joined, I said, no, we don't have music. And then my boss then said, what do you mean by we don't have music? I said, we don't have Nigerian music. And Nigerians consume 60 to 70% of local music. He said, it's a lie. I play your radio. And I said, you can't rely on radio. Radio only plays what they cannot get. And radio is very territorial. It's limited to Lagos. Those accessing Boomplay do not only live in Lagos. So he said, how do we do this? I said, well, we have to do the dirty work. And he was like, what do you mean by dirty work? We have to go knocking on people's door with a translated contract in their local language with an English copy, signing them, get the CD, and go back to the office, transfer the CD to MP3, scan the artwork the way it is into JPEG, and then upload. We did that between 2017 and 2018, and in Nigeria, I did 250 tracks. In Ghana, we did about 50,000 to 60. In Tanzania, that was almost every track in Tanzania. We only had Vanessa MD, Platinum Diamonds, and some few guys who only had their songs in MP3. The rest were still in CDs. And between that 2017 and 2018, the outcome of it is in 2019 is that Boomplay was able to raise $20 million investment, which I led. The numbers were astronomical. The results were beautiful. The feedback were awesome. And that is why you can run the test. When you go to Boomplay and you go to all other platforms, music platform, Boomplay has the largest African catalog you can ever find. And they have the best data matching. Sometimes you go on Apple Music, you play Shino Peters, you hear Barista. Sometimes on Spotify, you play the show King Wasiu and Dem Mashup, you play it to hear Oshupa. I don't know why Nigerians should pay for that. I will not pay for that, and I will not subscribe for that. You don't have what suits me. So when DSP says Nigerian market is not valuable, I say no, our market is not valuable. You are not just building the right business. Right? And that is the reason why when you look at now, Boomplay is becoming the fastest growing monetized music platform. The only challenge with that platform is because it's only the platform that also receives local currency. So it's an economic problem, not a user paying problem. And that is my proof of concept to everyone here. You can decide to take up the task if you believe no one else will do it, to begin to pick a problem, debunk the fallacies and the myths behind the problem as you read online, and do the hard work like some of us have done, like Grace is doing from Homecoming, and some of you here have also done. Or you can continue to speak about the myth. And my philosophy around that is, nowhere would you find a greener pasture without someone taking time to wet it. If you continue to seek greener pasture, and you leave your own gray haze, it's never going to grow. It's only greener where you wet it, right? And that is what has been happening to the success we have been seeing. If we do not decide, and I'll give credence to United Masters, for example, who has charted the course of a different style entirely. It has decided to come to the market and not chase existing talent and say, you know what, we want to take X artist from X distributor. We want to find a way to take this guy from this guy. It has done a different approach by developing new talents in unknown, undiscovered, or unearthed genres. It has decided to put its money behind discovering a new generation of talent, and it has decided to make its own capital a patient capital. So also, I'm explaining to you that when you are trying to use technology to access all these opportunities, to build all this, you need to find patient capital. If you begin to speak to investors who want return back in 3 years, you are going to be one of those bad stories. Those investing in Boomplay have given Boomplay about 15 years runway because they've seen the data and they've seen that it takes a while. But this is still not a local business, by the way. This is a foreign business. So if you, as a local person, you're choosing to say, as a creator, I want to build distribution system. I want to build educational system. I want artists to be able to calculate their royalties locally. I want to build a system where artists who make money locally can get financing advance locally. As I speak to you, there's no bank in Nigeria that is giving artists advance on their royalties. But there are more than 12 banks in the United States giving artists advance on their royalties in Nigeria. Yes. It's funny, right? Because nobody has built a system that is able to explain that to how it works to the banks. It's that basic. You can't blame the bank. The only person you can blame is us in this room. We know the business, and that's not the business of the banks. The business of the banks is to manage money of customers. So if you don't build a system that can simplify it for the banks won't go there. They will go where somebody else has simplified it. Just as how people have done in the trading industry, in the agri industry, in the oil and gas sector. I've touched on this before, but while everybody thinks about managing artists, nobody thinks about managing catalogs. And that is why when artists grow old, they get poor, They beg for money online, even though the money exists somewhere. We all want to manage artists. We all want to manage celebrities. We want to be in front. But nobody's thinking, what about their work? Who manages their work? I am a catalog manager. I have never choose to manage talents, and I probably would never manage talents. I see no advantage in managing talents, because a talent is a talent. Everyone in this room is a talent. You're a talent at your own field. What you probably don't have is somebody managing your investment and your work, and which is where the real value exists. In my life, and I'll use that as an example, I have successfully been able to do something that serves as a precedent and will serve as a precedent to the end of time. As I speak to you, there's no court in Nigeria. There's no probate registry in Nigeria that recognizes IP as an asset. So when an artist dies, there's no way to transfer his catalog except to write it in a will. But if an artist dies intestate without a will, you need to do what we call some legal maneuvers to let the courts recognize the IP as an asset that the estate can manage. And my first case in experiencing that was a 4 years battle with one bank and the Lagos State High Court for that green. First of all, the bank run the account from about 600,000 to minus 600, somebody who is dead. They took charges on the accounts to minus 600. So we had no financial record, no credit financial record to get an estate letter. Because for you to get an estate, you must prove that the person has an asset at the time they died. And that asset must be credit worthy. Minus 600 naira in our accounts is not viable. And the other thing that Green had was his catalog, because his popular label, Mr. Free Entertainment, was also not registered. It was a name on his tongue. So when we approached the court said he doesn't have any property. We took a copyright notification and said a copyright notification is not an instrument of certifying assets. It's just an equitable document to notify the federal government that I am forced in time to create this work. So what did we do? We had to do a catalog valuation and look for the composers, SARS and SOSIC here, to come together to do a valuation of catalog in a document, document it in a tangible CD form, and now write an agreement, a posthumous or a pre-humous agreement, claiming that there is a valuation on the song. And that's where the probate registry decided to give us an estate letter to administer his catalog after 4 years. The only reason we had to go through that is because there was no music administrator. And it's not just him. We are currently doing that for a whole lot of talents who are deceased, and their works has no certainty on who should license it or not. Music administration is beyond catalog management. So do not confuse music administration for catalog management. Catalog management is knowing, who owns what percentage in the song, what are the metadata information attached to the song. Every manager in this room knows the catalog that their talent owns when you ask them. But music administration in asserting those rights in a documented form and ensuring that the value to those catalogs are ascertained in that document. If Mr. X creates a song, Mr. Y and Z, and you agree on what the royalties are, do you have a split sheet that ascertains that? Do you have an agreement referencing the split sheet as an agreed terms among you? And do you also have it on record who the administrator of the catalog is and what is the length of which they can administer that catalog? And if at your death, the administration continues or immediately reverts to your estate. These are job opportunities that has not been tapped, and only few of us exist, but few of us cannot do it alone. Each genre would at least need nothing less than 100 administrators, because you rarely find a genre that doesn't have at least 10 artists, millions of drummers, and composers. And one genre in itself embodies a whole culture. So if you think maybe Ire is there and then some lawyers are there, we are not enough. We can't even do the whole job. Clearing one album gives us nightmare ordinarily, because the guys on the other side are not catalog administrators, they are just lawyers. So they don't know why a word, a sentence, a phrase, a kickback into a term matters. I'm sure everybody in the room probably knows this. How can artists make money? You can do publishing deals. You can do sync licensing. You can distribute your song. I can tell you all that thing that you already know. But what an artist doesn't know in this era is that your biggest asset is you and what you create. And in this era, an artist is not different from an influencer. And your biggest asset is what you create, what you push and stand behind. And so I laugh when people say this artist has not been on the chart in 10 to 20 years. It's probably poor. It doesn't have money. I just laugh. Because this artist has been influencing your election for over 8 cycles. How is an artist that is influencing your election for 4 election cycles, has built a resort, owns a farm worth more than ₦1 billion, lesser valuable than somebody who is on the chart for just 6 weeks? That's a food for thought. An artist's value is not determined by streams. Streams is just a medium to ascertain a specific area of value, strictly limited to the masters and the publishing. It doesn't talk about the value of your name, your likeness, your trademark, and your brand value. So I didn't put that on here intentionally. If you want to truly monetize a talent, the real value of monetization is a number of audience an artist can control, or can direct, or can convert, whichever language you want to use. If my artist has 1 billion stream, but cannot convert sales to a product of 10% of that, that artist is not valuable as it seems on stream. I know of who have 500,000 followers across all their platforms. They have not hit 500 million streams, but they convert sales more than their followers. Yes, they sell more land more than any urban artist who has millions of streams. They are a gospel artist. Majority of their fan base are not online. Even if they're online, they probably don't follow anybody. But when they appear in church festivals every other weekend, every other night vigil, and they say, I am an ambassador of a real estate company and I think you should buy land there. Tomorrow morning, the estate company sees 100 people walking to their desk and buy land. So, as an artist, you have to begin to reason, ask yourself, where is your value before you think about monetization? When you look at monetization from an angle of a laid down path, what you're doing is you're following a monetization value of some people and what they've laid. I have not seen any artist in Nigeria who has successfully been able to build merchandise. And we have universities. But you see, artists wants to sell $250 merchandise to students. But the biggest market for the FMCG market in Nigeria is universities, where they sell spaghettis, school bags, caps, sling bags, shoes. Every semester, at least in Nigeria, an average student spends about 50,000 on consumable goods. And the largest population in Nigeria of youths now is sitting at about 80 million. So let's assume half of that spends 50 million every semester in 2 semesters. Do you know what that means? So why are artists not thinking in that direction? I want them to wear the new tie for the law students. I want them to carry my slingback sakas. My knapsack is what I want them to use. My varsity jackets should be the next thing. The belts they wear should come from my company. The dark shades they use belong to me. One of my talenteni is an ambassador for sushi glasses that is locally made. And we are seeing the sales. So we need to begin to think out of the box. We cannot all become ants who gather around a cube of sugar. So I'd like to end with the future trends. And these are not things that I think I need to talk about. I think it's what's in everybody's lips. NFCs, blockchains, virtual reality concerts. In my opinion, I don't think we are there yet. And I think this is misplaced priority. I think we are so concerned about what is happening in developed markets that we begin to juxtapose what developed markets are doing here. You know, people come to me and say, I want to build the next VR. I want to build, and then when they are done and it's time to load up contents into the VR, then we all go head scratching. I'm like, well, I built the next big thing, but you know, there's no catalog to load. I'm like, why is there no catalog? Oh, because, you know, I found out that. I'm like, oh shit. You should have found out that before building the VR. You should know that before venturing here. We will definitely get here. But before we get here, we need to fix what other market has fixed. I can remember in the age of Napster, somebody approached the US Intellectual Property Office and made a gig and a wager to document everything in the IP office, which was what then was about $60 million. To bring every IP stored in the IP office, the USPT office, online. And that is the reason why you see that market moving at that rate. But here is in Nigeria, if you go to copyright office to ask for what you registered 2 years ago, it will take you another 2 years to get it. You can't even find what happened in Nigeria in the 80s without not going to flip through a book in the vault room of the copyright office. That's another opportunity. We need to solve that data problem. We need to bring everything online. I can see some people amongst us are beginning to build archive for artwork. But when I look for that artwork, it's also the artwork you can find on Spotify. You can't find artworks that you can't find on Google on there. So it's still just somebody re-rinsing the same thing over and over. There's no MVP for that. And there's been beautiful case studies of local becoming international. And I think the recent is Skepta and Portable. I mean, everybody says Portable is not going to amount to something. And that time I'll say, no, you guys don't know what's going on. Portable has a whole audience in Peckham. Portable's audience is Peckham. Everybody in Peckham relieves the memory of coming to Nigeria one day and Portable reminds them of what they left back home. Cultural renaissance, as we started with. So it was a no-brainer that this was going to win, except if you don't know how music works. And we expect to see more of that. It's just the first of many kind. It started with, obviously, Debunking, and no, it started way before Debunking University. It started with Rick Ross and P Square. And, you know, I can go back and started with KSA showing up in Hollywood movies. It's in performing as cameo in Hollywood movies and on and on. But it's just the recent one of how hyperlocal is more valuable in an export market than when you're trying to recreate. You know, no offense, but I see people try to do Yoruba rock, Igbo rock, Hausa country music. It's fun. I like it. But I don't think anyone from the rock markets will want to buy Yoruba rock. Like, why should I buy an adulterated version of my music? I think we Africans do that. We like to see maybe somebody from Germany sing Fuji. You know, we like all that acceptance. But it's not going to work. I don't think that's rock, Yoruba rock, will make the top 100 rock song. Or an average metal rock consumer in the States will look at that and say that's the next thing to consume. But I think if a Fuji artist features a rock band artist and they make music together, I think it's going to top the charts. But I don't think adulterating people's culture will, because I mean, we are the first to shout when somebody adulterates our culture. But when we adulterate other people's own, we're like, yeah, we know we're Africans, we can do it. We need to begin to think out of the box on how to reach a global audience by specifically looking at what we have locally, looking at what is happening in an international market, and bringing up a marriage as opposed to taking out the adulterated version. I hope I've convinced you, have not convinced you in my representation, and thank you for being here. So I'd like to take questions. Yeah. Is it Mike?
Hi. Hi. Thank you so much, Ira. That was amazing. Just to challenge your point about exporting like our mother tongues, what would you say about Ashake kind of using a USP of like speaking Yoruba in music, like really trying to maintain that? Actually, I asked him personally, why don't your songs could essentially be even more global if you spoke in English. And he said that it doesn't sound right to him. He wants to preserve how it sounds for him. So as much as it is, I just would love to see what your point of view is that in terms of like, should artists be trying to bring that USP globally? Or like, how can we use Ashake as a case study to explore?
I'll start by saying, Otutu, Owanyo, Magarasimi, Alakorio. I mean, when I heard Happiness the first time, it was a no-brainer. And the reason why it is important for us to be original with our culture is what is an example of where we are right now. I don't think if Nike Art Gallery was selling Ferragamo, Fendi bags and all that, I don't think anyone would come here and appreciate it. So I think from a culture perspective, from a personality perspective, from a business perspective, for a market acceptance perspective, it is just all right to take the culture to the global stage. And I also think from a future perspective, as an artist, you're not going to be a superstar forever. We've seen that over and over and again. And when that time comes, are you going to be proud enough to say, I spent all my life pushing another man's culture, and at my old age, I'm not proud to play my music? I think that's my perception of that. Question?
Yeah. With this whole conversation, you got me doing a lot of thinking, to be honest. And where I'm asking now is that, where exactly is the role of the next generation? You made it clear that we need to embody our sound, our tradition, our own stories. And I feel like the market is ripe for the taking, in that maybe due to bad governance and everything, there are more and more Nigerians scattered all over the world now, and the internet connects us. So what is the role of the next generation in changing this stuff and doing what you are talking about? How does the sets of 12 to 25 years old teenagers and young adults, how do they like influence these changes in culture, in sound? Because right now in sound, everybody wants to refine to what is globally acceptable. So how do we like have like a mindset shift, a paradigm shift, to ensure that we get to like embody what is our own? Because no matter how much we try to refine, there's still that sense of pride in core traditional aspects in our dressing. That's why there's always going to be Yoruba men PR and tradition in traditional ways. There's always going to be that elegance. So how do we like drive it home so that we don't have a culture of like young people that are aspiring to be like people they are really not and can never really be?
Well, I think, first of all, education is the answer. Like, we have to keep educating, and it shouldn't stop. And I think that the generation you mentioned about are the inheritance of whatever we are doing today. They are the one, like, I keep saying to the beautiful women at Cross, they are like they're like that generation. They are building what the next generation would enjoy. A comprising majority of 90% women. And they face a lot of backlash when they're educating their peers. When they're telling them, oh, Nigeria is the next big thing, like, they lie. That happens. But it's okay. Like, everybody faces that. Like, I'm sure when Grace wanted to move back to Nigeria, somebody asked her, are you okay, Grace? Like, is everything, why are you moving back to Nigeria? But look at it now. Grace has been the brain behind so many success, including this. It's okay for it's okay for success stories to have a pushback. And that's how success story works. That's what fuels it. And we can't stop education. It's something that we must stick to. And the reason why I'm latching on education and nothing else is because that's the only way. Whether we put money in birthing new artists, but if you don't train and educate the artists, what happens? And I'll give you my story. When I met SARS, and I'm proud to say now, and I spoke to him about the SARS Academy, my pitch, he was making a beat right there and a reminisce in the room. My pitch was was not up to 3 minutes. He looked at me and said, I like what you're building. I like what you're saying. I love it. Let's go outside. And that was at Fadi then. Yeah, he could see what I was saying and it was in tune. But he had naysayers. He had a naysayer who was very close to him. I'll mention his name or title, who told him categorically and said, what is SARS Academy? Do you think Nigerians will care about this? You people are just always doing things that are stupid. Yes, I'm quoting him and I can say it anywhere. Yeah. In fact, he walked away from SARS because of that. But did that deter us? It's that simple. You would always have naysayers when you're trying to do the right thing. If you're trying to build the next generation, start building things that speak to the next generation. And I'll tell you the truth. 2018 SARS Academy, P Prime was 16. And I remember that I was scared. And I said, SARS, are you sure we want an underage to make it into the academy? Because we're going to have celebrities who are going to have alcohol with them. And SARS told me and said, I started producing when I was 17. So why are you scared? So we had actually 2 16-year-olds come in, Looney Tunes and P Prime. I don't think I need to tell anybody in the room who P Prime is now. Exactly. So that's what you do for the next generation. You prepare a table for the next generation. You stick to advancing and building that table for them, and you care less what anybody talks about. That is the answer that I have tested and have validated. There might be other things to do. There might be putting education in our film. There might be a lot of other things, but I don't think anything trumps education. I mean, when you're branding, the branding must be ready to speak and tell them about it. When I mean education, I don't mean the 4 walls of a classroom. Maybe the story will change before the end of this year, but SARS Academy to the inception doesn't have a venue. We don't have a school. It has all been virtual school. And we've changed lives. We put money in the hands of pocket and we've built generational wealth without the 4 walls of a room. So when I mean education, I don't mean formal education. I don't mean 4 walls of a room. I mean enlightenment. I mean collaboration. I mean knowledge sharing. And I mean opening up your resources to other people.
Hi, everybody. Very insightful session. I've learned like a lot, as always. I have a question. Where should young people look to get educated? Because for me, like my go-to is usually like Google, and I'm not from Lagos. Coming here was, a big eye opener. So like for people like me that tend to like have to relocate to go get information, like where do we need to look to get educated? Because I never knew what Waka was until, recently. So there, yeah.
So I'm going to throw shades, but the best way to learn is through apprenticeship. Whatever you see me learning here, despite the fact I went to law school, I finished in law school, I was a lawyer, I still did 3 years apprentice under a man called Ayoshonaya. I didn't care that I was a lawyer, and I wasn't paid all through that years. Yeah, we had our issues, boss and students, but today he's still my mentor, I still respect him, and I still learn from him. The ideology of young people becoming CEOs overnight, it's destructive. You know, I see online people say, I'm a CEO, and I laugh. You are not a CEO, you know nothing, you have no executive around you. Why are you rushing? Be an apprentice. The fastest way to learn is not Google, it's not AI, it's not reading books. Watch those who have become you learn. And by the way, I am still an apprentice. I'm now an apprentice under K1. In the next 2 years, I will be learning about Fuji in the next 2 years, and I will be building an infrastructure around Fuji music. I will be traveling to Djibouti every Sunday, every 6 Sundays in a month. Every 6 Sundays, I'll be traveling to Djibouti to go and learn about Fuji. I will be an apprentice, I will not be paid. So that is only, that to me, that is weird. That is the first way to learn. Find who has known it and dedicate your life to learning it. Ignore the shortcomings of the teacher. Ignore the imperfection and the fantasy you've built in your head about the teacher. Be humble to learn, because it is that knowledge that you will use to build your own enterprise. Without knowledge, you're just blowing. You know, I see a lot of people want to become boss. They want to be this panel. Before I ever start sitting on panel, I used to carry bag for a lot of people on panels. I used to be the one writing their deck. I used to be the one standing and bringing them water, and I was never ashamed doing it. A lot of people in the industry who are like my seniors now, who now rely on me on advice, knew me then. I used to be a boy around a lot of CEOs then, and I was never ashamed doing it. A lot of lawyers saw me and thought like, how are you a graduate? Oh, actually, not a lawyer, and I have to be honest. My father, who happens to be my father, called me a miscreant because it felt like being an entertainment lawyer means going around celebrities with bag and trying to be in the spotlight. He didn't see what I wanted to achieve. He didn't understand that there's a whole business enterprise or empire I'm trying to build. And I didn't mind. I wasn't angry. You know, I just knew that he didn't understand what I was doing, and I was okay carrying bags. I was okay carrying water. I knew what I wanted to learn. And where I am today is simply because I stood on shoulders of those people. I will not tell you here I built myself. I did not build myself. I stood on the shoulders of SARS. I stood on the shoulders of Reminisce. I stood on the shoulders of Tony Okoroji. I stood on the shoulders of so many people, even Grace, because by the time Grace was coming to the market, I was doing homecoming. I'm like, oh, so we can do panels like this for young people. Interesting. We're going to steal from that. Right? So that is the fastest way. I can tell you to go to panels, but these panels, you forget half of the things I've told you when you go home. I face your problems. But when you go through apprenticeship, you don't forget how someone makes you feel. Either they make you feel bad or they make you feel good. You remember the knowledge that's tied to it. My dream, or our dream, and part of my leader's dream, SARS, is that the next 2 years we're going to build the academy, a proper venue where we fly in people all over the world from several jurisdictions to actually run apprenticeship program for weeks. So they're not going to come and teach you panels. You're going to live, sleep, and wake up with them every day. You're going to resume with them. You're going to watch their life. You're going to see the good and bad and the ugly of their career so you can forge your own. So we're not going to tell you someone in the music industry is so good, he's an angel with wings, and we want you to be like him. No, we're going to tell you he smokes, he has some drug addiction, he went through it when it was in music, and now he's trying to cleanse himself. He's going to tell you what he went through to build his career. And you're going to live with him seeing all that. So I hope I've answered your question, and I hope I've done justice so far. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll take questions on Instagram or Twitter if you message me. Thank you so much.